skeptical at first, like peer-run respite? Like what is that?
I said, well, what is a peer respite?
I know, right? What is a peer respite?
A peer respite is a non-clinical environment set up specifically to support people going through difficult times, to avoid hospital, move through their distress, and toward a better place. It is developed, led, and run by people who themselves have been diagnosed, hospitalized, and/or experienced trauma. In truth, the idea of creating a sort of home away from home in which to help people avoid psychiatric hospitalization has been going on for several decades. One early effort was the Crisis Hostel in Ithaca, New York, around about 1993. While not entirely peer-to-peer, the hostel was a huge step in that direction. In truth, to be considered a pure peer respite, all team members must identify as having had their own experiences, including those in leadership roles. And if the house is part of a larger organization, it's not a clinical one and is governed by a board where people with personal experience are also strongly represented. By that definition, the first peer respite was Stepping Stones, developed in Claremont, New Hampshire in 1995 by Sherry Mead and friends. By 2012, there were about a dozen pure and hybrid peer respites throughout the country. And then there was Afiya. Lucky number 13. Afiya was officially born on Saturday, August the 4th, 2012 in Northampton, Massachusetts. A group called the Groundhogs, yes, I said it, the Groundhogs, was actually visioning and advocating for respites in Massachusetts for several years before. So when it finally happened, everyone was more than ready to go. The team had been told to expect things to start out slowly, but someone came to stay that very first day, and the house has been full almost ever since.
Peer respites across the country vary in a number of ways, including who can stay and for how long. At Afiya, just about anyone in the region who is 18 or older and experiencing significant emotional or mental distress is welcome to have a conversation with someone working at the house about whether or not Afiya is a good fit, especially if they are trying to avoid hospitalization or other more restrictive interventions. If everyone involved decides it is a fit, then the person is able to stay up to 1 week. While there, anyone staying can expect access to their own private room and community spaces, peer-to-peer support focused on turning crisis into a learning opportunity, resource information, and the ability to connect freely with the broader community. In fact, Afiya is connected to the Western Mass Recovery Learning Community, or RLC. The RLC is a large network of people working within 4 branches: advocacy and activism, alternative healing practices, training and consultation, and peer-to-peer supports. This last branch is, of course, where Afiya sits. The RLC also operates within a values-based framework, and that definitely applies at Afiya. Everyone working or staying at the house is asked to be personally responsible for taking part in holding values like self-determination, mutuality, creating a healing environment, and respect. Some may say that that's too much to expect of someone going through a hard time, but this reflects their belief that people are still capable, even when struggling, and is critical to who we are and how we work.
I didn't know what to expect, but because of the way I was treated on the phone, I felt comfortable in being here.
Afiya not being in a hospital and not being, in a, big, huge, intimidating brick-walled building and actually just being a house in a neighborhood is refreshing.
I thought the setup was great. I liked my room. The room was really nice and big, and big bed that I wouldn't normally be able to sleep in, so it was nice and comforting.
It's beautiful, but also homey. So it's not like you see something beautiful and, oh, I can't touch that.
From playing the guitar if you need it to artwork, or you can express anything you'd like here, and you have the freedom to come and go.
So if one is up for going out and exploring and then coming back to a safe and predictable environment, they can do that.
I'm not secluding myself from the outside world. It makes me feel like I'm part of a home. I'm part of a family that I don't have anymore.
knowing how muddy and messy the clinical respites can be is a little scary. The packet they hand you on your first day in is like 30 pages thick, so you're experiencing crisis and you're expected to read this packet, sign on to these rules, go into this facility and recover.
It was so much easier to call and say, I'm having a hard time, than the times that I've called crisis where it's been about, what drug have you taken at what age? When's the last time you did it? Or were you ever sexually abused? And when's the last time you've been to detox? That whole conversation is so long and painful. If I didn't feel horrible in the beginning, I would feel horrible by the end.
Because I was in crisis, and I'd only started with a new therapist the first time for one meeting, and I had written to her an email, let her know what was happening, and she emailed me back and said, because you're in crisis, essentially, I'm shortening it, but because you're in crisis, I can no longer be your therapist. I was stunned, absolutely stunned, and that just sent me into a further loop of crisis.
So I was at this point of facing involuntary commitment, and I had slowly got off my medication, and things had gone well for a while, but now I was hitting a bumpy spot. And the bumpy spot was getting tougher and tougher, and my service providers were like, we've given you a while, things aren't getting better, we think you need to go back in the hospital. So at one point, when I was getting the ultimatum, I just ran and hid in the woods. And things were not getting better. And I really wanted to have a chance to see if I could go through this extreme state without going to the hospital, because when I've gone to the hospital, not only did I have to recover from that extreme state, I had to recover from the trauma of having been in the hospital. I didn't know if it would work, but I wanted the chance to see if I could try a different way to get through this experience. And I was able to go to Afiya and be in my extreme state and sleep odd hours and be able to have a coherent conversation and not be able to have a coherent conversation. And what I discovered was that I could go through an extreme state without being extremely medicated. And it really forced me to try to look at different strategies. When I went there, people said, what can we do to help you? And that kind of freaked me out, because normally people would say, this is what you need to do. We'll put you on this medication, da 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 da. And instead, I had to experiment and see what was helpful for me. And I learned a lot about how to manage those experiences in a more self-directed way. We worked out this thing at Afiya where each of my kids came, and the people working there were able to sit and talk with us, and I didn't feel like people were on two different sides. It wasn't about, how to make Marty compliant. It was more like how to make this work, and what does everybody in this group need? And we were able to negotiate that, and that was something that had never happened in the past.
It's a really important part of the healing experience to become a part of a non-judgmental, fully accepting community.
The best way I've been able to recover, I guess, is people around me that just let me be who I am and kind of experience what I'm going through and are reflective in that process so I don't get trapped.
For me, the biggest thing is respect. I think that's key in a space like that, is to feel respected, is to be able to get respect, give respect. I think that that leads to be able to feel comfortable and really be able to relate with each other in a different kind of way, right? That we're all there for different reasons, or able to respect our differences and still come together and, you know, assist each other in healing. And that's what was great about Afiya specifically.
They're very good listeners. They really don't tell you what to do, but point you in the right direction. So you really have to step up to the plate and do your own thing and make it happen for yourself.
What I have done is I've been able to find full-time work, and I think that speaks volumes. I can't emphasize enough what it feels like to get back to work. It's dignity, it's honor, it's pride. It's amazing, and I really would like to thank everybody at the Afiya House and the RLC.
They knew I was facing forced commitment, and but somehow they weren't, you know, freaked out about that, and they didn't need to know, you know, every chart written on me and my, you know, 20-year history of in and out of things. And I really felt like it was someone relating to me as a fellow human being going through a hard time.
Nostalgia